And not the MTV real world either. And I hope you're excited about that. I know you are. But not just for the freedom that comes from not living your life by bell schedules anymore. I hope you're excited for the phenomenal times you now stand in, this time in history. I hope you're excited about life. It's true. There are a lot of negative things in the world right now. Global warming, terrorist attacks, crime, wars, corruption, public debt. There's a lot of gloom out there. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of hope or optimism for our future. Or for you, for our youth, for your generation. I mean, you're texting all the time, listening to iPods, Facebooking. The other day I heard this from a public figure. The world is passing through troubled times. The young people of today think of nothing but themselves. They have no respect for parents or the elderly. They're impatient and have no restraint. They talk as if they know everything, and what passes for wisdom with us is foolishness with them. As for the girls, they're forward, immodest, and unladylike in speech, behavior, and dress. Another one said, I see no hope for the future of our nation if they are dependent on the frivolous youth of today. They are reckless beyond words. So there's a lot of bad in the world, and we can be very critical of our youth. But you know what? It's okay. The negatives of this world are nothing new. Take a look at history. Every generation has faced conditions such as these and worse. And every generation seems to think they're doomed and their youth are heading to ruin. No, those two quotes I just read to you, you know that first one? It comes from the year 1274, over 700 years ago. The second one goes even further back, to the 8th century, over 1,200 years ago. I see no hope for our future. The young people are selfish. The girls have gone wild. Ah! And yet, we're still here, aren't we? And I suspect the world will outlast you and I as well. I don't mean to downplay the degree of problems that we face and the challenges that you'll have to overcome, but we are living safer and more comfortably than just about anyone in thousands of years of human history. And if you doubt that, look up historical life expectancies, check out levels of poverty, disease, and war, living conditions of the past. For that matter, check these things out in much of the world today. We have it pretty good. You know all those terrible tornadoes that we just experienced in the nation recently? I overheard a student say, I think maybe the world is ending. This is the end of the world. But another student responded, maybe, but at one time the entire continent was covered in ice, so I think it could be worse. The grim end of the world has been predicted countless times throughout history, as recent as a few months ago. Eventually it's bound to happen. Someone will be right someday. Everything ends, eventually, even you. But in the meantime, we're alive, life is good. You're alive, right? And as my 92-year-old father-in-law regularly says, just relax. Everything's going to be all right. So here you are with the best 60 pages still ahead. But you're here because this is the setting of some significant passages in your story. And you're sitting with many of the important characters in your story. And it's time for a scene change. It's time to turn a page. And if you feel that, if you sense the need to value that, to take a breath and reflect by being here this morning, then I think you're practicing a valuable trait. The importance of seeing the value in now, in today. It reminds me of something Alan Watts said. Alan Watts was a British speaker and writer. Last year, one of my students, Rhett, shared a clip of something that Watts said. And what Watts said was to imagine a musical symphony, musical composition. And what if the goal was to get to the end of it as fast as possible? Then the best conductors would be the fastest conductors. Can you imagine Mr. Banner crazily waving his arms to rush to the end of the piece? People might rush out to the symphony just to hear the final crash of the cymbals. And how silly that would be. And yet Watts goes on to observe, this is so often how we live our lives. And maybe it starts in school, where you start on the path to success. First grade. So you can get promoted and go to second grade. And third grade, and so on, because up ahead is that success and that happiness. So you go on to middle school, keep going, your life is up ahead. On high school, graduate high school, go to college, keep going, it's up ahead. Start your career, don't stop, because you have to work your way up. Success and happiness are up ahead, so keep working, it's coming. Move on up to the next promotion or the better job or the higher pay, keep going and going, because one day you'll arrive. And maybe one day comes. Let's say you're on page 40-something of your life story, and you say, I think I've arrived, but you don't really feel all that different. Where's the contentment? Where's the happiness you were pursuing? Was it a hoax? Was it a trick? And Watts says, it was a trick. You missed it, because it wasn't a race at all. He argues that a race is the wrong life metaphor. It's actually a musical thing, and you're supposed to sing and dance all along the way. Maybe you remember junior year, where perhaps you encountered the story of one of the great American dreamers, Jay Gatsby. From Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. You might remember, Gatsby spent years pursuing the green light, the dream of Daisy, this girl he met and lost when he was young. But he worked hard. He amassed a fortune. He threw these huge parties. He reinvented himself, all to reclaim his dream of love with Daisy. But I hope you remember how that story ended. If you somehow missed it junior year, spoiler alert, it did not end very well. First of all, there was no way she could live up to his imagination. He lived so far in the future, over-dreamed, over-imagined the girl and what it would be like. There was no way any reality could live up to the fantasy, so there was an emptiness when he got there. And two, when it became clear it wasn't going to work out as he had imagined, he sacrificed everything and she ultimately left him behind. He stared up at a cold, frightening sky and a grotesque world of empty dreams, and he died. And one of my students said he had to die. What else could he do? He lived too long in the pursuit of this dream. The problem wasn't that he dreamed. The problem was he dreamed too far into the future. If there's anything admirable about Gatsby, it's his hope, to a point. In the midst of his own elaborate parties, he stood there alone and isolated. He lived only for that elusive future. And if you don't remember Gatsby, maybe you remember that other classic hero who set out as a young boy pursuing a great dream. He set out from home with a big dream. He was going to catch them all. Of course, I'm talking about Ash Ketchum from Pokemon, but did you ever wonder why he needed to catch them all? Was that really necessary, all of them? He can only carry 6 at a time anyway, so why is he bothering? And you know what happened to Ash, right? I mean, just when he's on his way toward fulfilling that dream, traveling through all those color cities, on his way toward all 151, gotta catch him. You know what happened? They added more. It never ends. According to my son, there are now nearly 500 different Pokemon. I think they have even virus-type Pokemon. Ebola tube, swine fluosaur. And I want to say, Ash, buddy, let it go. You already have it all. Move back to Palatown, marry Misty, and enjoy the love of our faithful Pikachu. You know, it's sort of like the way I read that final Harry Potter book. I didn't go out at midnight and buy it, but I did go out the next morning because I didn't want it to have ruined for me. So I came home and I went out to the patio and I started reading. And I don't think I intended to finish it all at once, but very quickly that became the point. So I started plowing through that thing, page after page, rushing through that book. And when it was over, my head was pounding, my eyes were aching. I stumbled back in the house. My wife said, "How was it?" I said, I think it was good. And there was Harry. I think Gandalf in the afterlife, and maybe Edward Cullen on Quidditch playing Harry. I didn't know. I didn't know what had happened. And that's no way to read a book. That's no way to live your life. The point of the story isn't to rush to the end. Now, I'm not advocating an aimless, meaningless life. I'm just saying that whatever ambition you have, don't miss the dance. Because here's the thing. At least in this life, there's no climax. Here's the one place the analogy between life and a story breaks down. Because one difference between stories in our lives is there's no climax, there's no resolution in life. That's the stuff of movies and books. And realizing that's important, because otherwise we go through life thinking that, well, if I only have this, or then that happens, I'll find a happy ending. And there's no climax like that in your life. There are many climaxes, right? I mean, you get married, let's say, or you make the team, you get the promotion. But then a few weeks, or days, or hours after the wedding, you realize the work it takes to sustain a relationship